2,500 years ago, a man wandered through China for 14 years, rejected by every ruler he approached. He was mocked as impractical, dismissed as outdated, called a man who knows he cannot succeed yet keeps trying. He died believing he had failed completely. Today, his teachings have shaped more human beings than any other philosophy in history. Over 2 billion people live in cultures profoundly influenced by his ideas. His words are quoted by presidents and peasants alike. His vision of human flourishing remains, after 25 centuries, one of the most practical guides to living well ever created. His name was Confucius. The West calls him Confucius. But here's what most people miss. Confucius wasn't teaching abstract philosophy. He was answering a question that burns in you right now, whether you know it or not. How do I become the person I'm supposed to be? How do I live so that when I die, my life will have mattered? How do I find meaning in a world that often seems chaotic and cruel? These aren't ancient questions. They're your questions. And the answers Confucius found are more relevant today than they've ever been. For the next 20 minutes, I'm going to share with you the wisdom of a man who transformed himself from an orphan child in poverty into the most influential teacher in human history, not through power, not through wealth, but through understanding something about human nature that we've forgotten and desperately need to remember. Stay with me. What you're about to learn could change how you live every single day. Before we dive in, I need to ask you something. If you've ever felt lost in modern life, if you've ever sensed that despite all our technology and progress, we've lost something essential about what it means to be human, leave a comment. I want to know there are others who feel the hunger for something deeper than what our culture offers. Confucius was born around 551 BCE in the state of Lu, in what is now Shandong Province, China. His father was an elderly warrior who died when Confucius was only 3 years old. His mother raised him in poverty, and she too died when he was in his teens. Imagine being orphaned in ancient China with no family connections, no wealth, no path forward. In that rigid hierarchical society, such a beginning usually meant a life of obscurity and struggle. But young Confucius had one advantage, an insatiable love of learning. He studied everything: the ancient texts, the rituals of the Zhou dynasty, music, archery, chariot driving, calligraphy, mathematics. He believed that a complete human being should be cultivated in all dimensions, and he set out to cultivate himself. More importantly, he asked questions that others had stopped asking. Why do societies fall into chaos? Why do people treat each other cruelly? What makes a person truly good? What makes a leader truly great? What makes a life truly worth living? These weren't abstract questions for Confucius. He lived during the Spring and Autumn period, an era of constant warfare, political intrigue, and social breakdown. The old order was collapsing. The values that had held society together were being abandoned. Might made right. Treachery was rewarded. The powerful crushed the weak without remorse. Sound familiar? Confucius looked at this chaos and asked, "Is there a better way?" And he dedicated his life to finding it. The core of Confucius's teaching can be summarized in one word: Ren. It's usually translated as benevolence or humaneness, but those words don't capture it fully. Ren is what makes us truly human. It's the quality that elevates us above mere biological existence into genuine personhood. When a student asked Confucius to define Ren in a single phrase, he answered, "Love others." But he didn't mean love as a feeling. He meant love as a practice, as a discipline, as something you do every day, in every interaction, until it becomes who you are. This is crucial to understand. Confucius wasn't interested in people who felt compassionate, but acted selfishly. He wasn't interested in good intentions that never translated into good actions. He was interested in transformation, in becoming the kind of person who naturally, habitually, almost effortlessly does what is right. And he believed this transformation was possible for anyone, not just the noble-born, not just the naturally talented, anyone who was willing to put in the work. Confucius developed a path of self-cultivation that remains one of the most practical systems for personal development ever created. At its heart were 5 key relationships and the virtues that should govern them: parent and child, ruler and subject, husband and wife, elder and younger sibling, friend and friend. Notice something important. Confucius didn't start with the individual in isolation. He didn't say, "Find yourself," as if the self existed independent of others. He understood that we become ourselves through relationships, that our character is formed in how we treat the people in our lives, that there is no private virtue, only virtue expressed in action toward others. This is a radical challenge to modern individualism. We're taught that we need to find ourselves first, then enter relationships. Confucius said the opposite. We find ourselves through relationships. We become who we are by learning to relate rightly to parents, children, friends, colleagues, strangers. Let me ask you directly, who are you when no one is watching? And more importantly, who are you with the people closest to you? Are you patient with your parents? Loyal to your friends? Honest with your partner? Kind to those who can do nothing for you? Confucius would say that these questions matter more than any amount of meditation or self-reflection. Because character is not what you think or feel. Character is what you do repeatedly until it becomes your nature. If this is resonating with you, if you sense that Confucius is pointing towards something you've been missing, I need you to do something now. Like this video and subscribe to the channel, not for algorithm games, but because this wisdom needs to reach more people who are hungry for it. And what comes next is where the teaching goes deeper. One of Confucius's most important concepts is li, usually translated as ritual or propriety. To modern ears, this sounds stuffy and formal. We associate rituals with empty ceremonies, meaningless traditions, going through the motions. But Confucius meant something much deeper. Li refers to the forms of behavior that express and cultivate inner virtue. The way you greet someone, the way you eat a meal, the way you conduct a meeting, the way you mourn the dead, the way you celebrate a birth. Every action has a form, and those forms either elevate us or degrade us. Think about it. When you take time to set a proper table for dinner instead of eating standing over the sink, something changes. When you look someone in the eyes and give them your full attention, instead of glancing at your phone, something changes. When you write a thank you note by hand, instead of firing off a quick text, something changes. These forms matter. Not because they're arbitrary rules, but because they shape who we become. Practice respect long enough and you become respectful. Practice courtesy long enough and you become courteous. Practice reverence long enough and you develop the capacity for reverence. Confucius understood that we don't think our way into new ways of acting. We act our way into new ways of thinking. The rituals come first. The transformation follows. This leads to another crucial concept, self-cultivation as a lifelong practice. Confucius said, "At 15, I set my heart on learning. At 30, I established myself. At 40, I had no more doubts. At 50, I knew the will of heaven. At 60, my ear was attuned. At 70, I could follow my heart's desire without transgressing what was right." Notice the timeline. This is not a weekend seminar, not a 30-day challenge, not a quick fix. This is a lifetime of gradual development, of slowly becoming more fully human, of growing into wisdom through decades of practice. We live in a culture of instant gratification. We want transformation now. We want enlightenment delivered by Amazon Prime. We download apps that promise to change our lives in minutes a day. Confucius would gently suggest that we're deluding ourselves. Real change is slow. Real growth takes years, decades, a lifetime. The question is not whether you can transform yourself quickly, but whether you can commit to transforming yourself permanently, day by day, for as long as you live. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to accept that the person you want to become might take 30 years to emerge? Can you find meaning not in arrival but in the journey itself? Second question for you. What daily practices are you engaged in right now? Not occasionally, but daily. What rituals shape your days? And are those rituals making you better or worse? Confucius would say that this question matters more than almost any other, because you are not what you believe, you are not what you intend, you are what you repeatedly do. Your character is the sum of your habits, and your habits are the accumulation of your daily practices. Write in the comments what practices you're committed to, and be honest about whether they're serving your highest self. One of the most misunderstood aspects of Confucianism is its emphasis on hierarchy and tradition. Modern people hear these words and think of oppression, rigidity, blind obedience. But Confucius meant something different. Yes, he believed in hierarchy. Children should respect parents, students should respect teachers, citizens should respect leaders. But he also taught that these relationships are reciprocal. Parents must be worthy of respect. Teachers must be worthy of following. Leaders must be worthy of loyalty. He famously said, "If a ruler is upright, all will go well without orders being given. If a ruler is not upright, even if he gives orders, they will not be obeyed." In other words, authority is not automatic. It must be earned through virtue. The father who is cruel forfeits the respect of his children. The leader who is corrupt forfeits the loyalty of his people. Hierarchy exists not to serve the powerful, but to create order that benefits everyone. And tradition. Confucius revered the ways of the ancients, but not blindly. He studied them deeply, understood their purposes, and adapted them to his present circumstances. He was not a fossilized conservative clinging to the past. He was a reformer who believed that the wisdom of the past could illuminate the problems of the present. This is a message our culture needs to hear. We've been taught to reject the past, to assume that newer is always better, to dismiss tradition as mere prejudice. But Confucius understood that we are not the first humans to grapple with how to live well. Others have walked this path before us. Their hard-won wisdom is available to us if we're humble enough to learn. Let me tell you the most heartbreaking part of Confucius's story. He spent his life trying to find a ruler who would implement his ideas. He believed that if he could advise a wise king, he could help create a society of peace, prosperity, and human flourishing. He wandered from state to state, offering his services, presenting his vision, and he was rejected everywhere. Some rulers thought him too idealistic. Others found his moral demands inconvenient. Still others simply preferred advisors who told them what they wanted to hear, rather than what they needed to hear. For 14 years, Confucius wandered, homeless, often hungry, occasionally in danger. Once he was surrounded by hostile troops and nearly killed. Through it all, he kept teaching, kept hoping, kept believing that somewhere, somehow his vision would take root. It never did, not in his lifetime. Confucius returned home in his late 60s, a man who by worldly standards had failed completely. He had no political power, no great wealth. His reforms had not been implemented. The world remained as chaotic as ever, but he kept teaching. Students gathered around him, and he poured everything he had into forming them. He edited ancient texts, ensuring they would survive for future generations. He refined his teachings, clarified his ideas, deepened his wisdom, and he died at 72, believing his life's work had come to nothing. Here is the extraordinary thing. Within a few generations, Confucius's teachings spread throughout China. Within a few centuries, they became the foundation of Chinese civilization. Within 2,000 years, they had shaped more human lives than perhaps any other teaching in history. The man who was rejected became the man who defined a civilization. The ideas that were dismissed as impractical became the practical foundation for social harmony across millennia. The teacher who died in obscurity became the most influential teacher who ever lived. What does this tell us? It tells us that success and impact are not the same thing. That what looks like failure in the moment might be the seed of transformation that will bloom for millennia. That doing the right thing matters, even when, especially when, you cannot see the results. Confucius didn't succeed because people recognized his genius in his lifetime. He succeeded because he kept being faithful to what he knew was true, regardless of worldly recognition. He planted seeds he would never see flower, and those seeds became a forest that still shelters billions. Before we move to how you can apply these teachings, I need you to do something. If this story is moving you, if you sense the profound lesson in Confucius's patient faithfulness, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who is struggling with failure, someone who needs to be reminded that impact and recognition are not the same thing. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're building something here, a community of people who want more than surface-level motivation, who want the deep wisdom that has been tested across centuries. So what does all this mean for you, living in the 21st century, probably not in China, facing challenges Confucius couldn't have imagined? Let me give you 5 practical principles drawn from his teaching. First, focus on what you can control, which is yourself. Confucius didn't spend his energy raging against the chaos of his times. He focused on becoming the best person he could be. He controlled his actions, his words, his habits, his character. Everything else was beyond his power. You cannot control the economy, politics, other people's behavior, or most of what happens in the world. But you can control how you respond. You can control your daily practices. You can control the person you are becoming. Start there. Second, cultivate your relationships with intention. Who are the 5 most important people in your life? What is the quality of those relationships? Are you giving them the attention they deserve? Confucius would say that these relationships are not just part of your life. They are the laboratory where your character is formed. Treat them with the seriousness they deserve. Bring your best self to the people you love, and extend that care outward. in widening circles until you relate to all people with basic respect and humanness. Third, embrace ritual and routine. Create practices that shape your days, morning routines that center you, evening reflections that help you learn from the day, regular times with family and friends that strengthen bonds, practices of courtesy and respect that elevate ordinary interactions. These forms matter. They are not empty. They are the crucible in which character is formed. Fourth, study the wisdom of the past. You are not the first person to face the challenges of being human. Others have struggled before you. Some of them discovered profound truths and recorded them. That wisdom is available to you. Read the classics, not just Confucius, but the wisdom traditions of all cultures. Learn from those who have walked this path before you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Fifth, think in terms of decades, not days. The person you want to become will not emerge next week, but they can emerge over a lifetime of consistent practice. Plant seeds now that will bloom in 30 years. Make choices today that your future self will thank you for. This is the Confucian path. Not dramatic conversion, but gradual cultivation. Not instant enlightenment, but steady growth. Not becoming a different person, but becoming more fully yourself. Final question for you, and this is the most important one. What kind of person do you want to be when you're 70 years old? Not what do you want to have. Not what do you want to achieve. Who do you want to be? Confucius at 70 could follow his heart's desire without transgressing what was right. His desires and virtue had become aligned. What he wanted and what was good had merged into a single natural flow. Is that possible for you? Can you imagine reaching the end of your life with that kind of integrity, with that kind of peace? Confucius would say yes, but the path there begins now, with this moment, with this choice, with the next word you speak and the next action you take. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. That step is available to you right now. Confucius has been dead for 2.5 millennia. His bones have long since returned to the earth. The states he wandered through have risen and fallen 100 times, but his teachings live. They live in the cultures of East Asia. They live in the practices of millions of families. They live in the ideas about education, government, and self-cultivation that have spread around the world. And they can live in you, not as abstract philosophy, not as cultural curiosity, but as a practical path for becoming more fully human. Learn and practice constantly. Treat others with humaneness. Cultivate yourself through ritual and relationship. Honor the wisdom of the past. Think long-term. Become, day by day, year by year, decade by decade, the person you are capable of being. This is the Confucian invitation. It's not easy. It takes a lifetime. There are no shortcuts, but it works. It has worked for billions of people across thousands of years, and it can work for you. The master said, "Is humaneness really so far away? If I simply desire humaneness, I will find that it is already here. It's already here, within you, waiting to be cultivated. The only question is whether you will begin." 2,500 years ago, a failed politician died believing his life's work had come to nothing. Today, his words echo in this video, reaching you, wherever you are, inviting you to join a tradition of self-cultivation that spans millennia. Confucius couldn't see this, he couldn't see you, but he planted seeds anyway. Now it's your turn. What seeds will you plant today that will bloom long after you're gone? What kind of person will you become? What will your life mean? These questions are yours to answer. But you don't have to answer them alone. The wisdom of the ages is available. The path has been walked before. All you have to do is begin.